is News Talk.
Hello there, welcome along to Monday night's show. It's Joe here, and we've got a good one for you tonight. Munster fans, no doubt you were fairly sick watching that first half in Bordeaux. We'll have Keith Earls in studio for you at 7:30 or so. Leinster fans thinking about May 12th in Bilbao. We'll have Eddie O'Sullivan on Monday Night Rugby. Leinster fans also wondering about losing one of Joey Carberry or Ross Byrne. We'll be talking about that with Eddie after 8 o'clock. And then Michael Owen, studio interview on the way on the football show, about 35 minutes with Michael Owen, who was in studio yesterday. We recorded an interview with him on a range of things. It's now 20 years, Kevin Kilban, since Michael Owen, 18 years old, ran at the Argentinian defence.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it was some introduction, wasn't it, into the world stage, wasn't it?
It's a good goal, kids. YouTube it.
Brilliant goal, amazing goal. I mean,
FIFA don't like their output being put up on YouTube without their say so. By the way,
do they?
So let's just be careful about that.
Hello, Richie McCormick.
I watched that game in an Irish bar that was staffed by people exclusively wearing England jerseys.
Right.
In Portugal. I'll show you the level of involvement they had in that game that night.
Yeah, it was the way in for him, but it was more the fact is that it was just as if he just didn't care. He had a great end to the season, wasn't he? Scoring goals for fun. He gets in the squad and he just didn't care. He literally just didn't care.
It's the way to play football.
It is.
Well,
care in the world.
we recorded this yesterday. He popped in. He was promoting something for Cadbury, so he's over. And World Cup 98 was almost kind of the jumping off point. It was 20 years, God,
yeah.
What's that like? And he was saying at that time, not to give the whole interview away, and I can't really because it's 35 minutes, so it's still worth sticking around for. But he basically, from the age of 12, had broken every record going. He was the best player in the country from 12 years old on, every age grade, every debut, every season. He broke every record there was. He was unbelievably arrogant by his own admission. Now, he said it was weird trying to manage being so egotistical and so arrogant on the pitch and then just being a normal bloke having a cup of tea with his parents at the table when he goes home. But he said, like in the Argentinian game, he's like, I knew Batistuta, but I couldn't have named 4 or 5 Argentinian players. Wouldn't have known, wouldn't have cared. I was faster than them all. That was all there was I need to know.
I say that as well. There was a lot of times you come up against international players, even some of the better teams. You wouldn't know the players. There was no, certainly through that time, through the 90s, you weren't watching any of the leagues around Europe, around the world, essentially.
Kev, you weren't watching Euro goals of a Monday night on Eurosport with Archie McPherson.
I couldn't afford Eurosport in those days, Rich.
We got it for free back then, Kev.
Did you? Yeah.
God bless Cable Link.
Yeah.
He admitted himself, his career burst into flames right at the start. A massive arrival on the scene and kind of fizzled out over time. And he knows he wasn't the same player without the pace, because he was about pace. That is Michael Owen. Misdiagnosed that injury, could have been avoided maybe. So we'll play that for him around 9:15 or so. Isn't that right, JP? Or 9? 9. Michael Owen at 9. Miserable in Real Madrid as well. Off the pitch. Loved it on the pitch.
Yeah.
But had a very young child, his first child, and his wife, and they stayed at a hotel for the whole time. And there's no restaurants to go out to at 7 o'clock in Madrid, so he said they'd put the child down, I think it was 2 years old at the time, 7:30 for bed, turn off all the lights in the hotel room and the TV on mute, and wait until they fell asleep a few hours later, night after night after night. And he had Ronaldo begging him to go out and play golf with him, and he couldn't because his wife was miserable alone in a foreign country with the baby. So that was the end of his Madrid thing.
I think that is the thing that we constantly overlook when we do. We'll scrutinise players when they do come into the Premier League. It's not quite worked out. There are, in general, and I would say probably 90-95% of the time, it's not necessarily always what's happening on the pitch, why that player isn't particularly adjusted to coming in from a different league. It's family life, it's settling, it's you're not feeling settled at home, you're not feeling settled when you're going away from the club, your day-to-day life, it just doesn't seem right to you.
Well, he's on the way at 9. Lots of good stuff. Dealing with fame post-98, trying to make friends in the real world, kind of proved impossible, he found, and moving to Manchester United as well. It's funny, I said to a few people, we've Michael Owen in the next few days, is there anything you want to hear about? I asked you, Richie, as well that morning, and Richie's answer was the same as everyone else's. Ask him about moving to Man United. And that souring of the relationship with Liverpool fans. So that's all on the way. Paul says, I remember actually feeling genuine sorrow when Owen wrecked his leg, one of those players who you always watched through gritted teeth because you were just waiting for one of his hammers to pop at any moment. It was just destroyed him, really, didn't it?
I think that entered into his head a little bit as well. which may have stunted his progression. It's as soon as you get a progression of injuries, you kind of think that the next one's always on the way, similar to the way the texter's watching the game. He probably, in the back of his head, thinking you'd probably know better than any of us.
I think he'd remind me now of a Daniel Sturridge. Every time Daniel Sturridge plays, he's never been able to go full tilt with his sprinting.
You're second-guessing yourself.
And I'm sure he feels that mentally when he's playing games,
Yeah, somebody has texted in saying, Carly and Drogheda, why in God's name has Keith Earls agreed to come in? Don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to the chat, admittedly in a slightly sadistic way, but could he not have used any number of reasons to duck out of coming on off the ball? First of all, nobody ducks out of coming on off the ball.
No,
that's rule number one.
No one ducks out of an interview with you, Joe. You're on the next level now, Joe, so the people won't actually be interviewed by you. That's kind of how it is.
Slightly more important than that.
I love the way he brushes
you
over
are
them.
Such a tool
Love
at
the way he
times.
brushes
Honest
over
to
them.
God, you honestly, come on. You've got to embrace it sometimes, Joe. You are like showbiz now. You've got to embrace it.
You're going to be at the next TV3 launch in a more prominent position.
Yeah.
Third from left. The dream.
Moving closer to Mark Cagney. In every way possible.
Keith Earls is in here because the Rugby Players of Ireland are having their awards next month, and he's one of the nominees, but he had also agreed to promote the fact that the Rugby Players of Ireland awards were coming up. I know he thinks they do a lot for players and wanted to push that, so he'd agreed to do it in advance, obviously, of the weekend, and yeah, I'm sure he got home today and probably didn't want to come in here, but he didn't want to let them down. So in fairness, he came in. Very quickly then, before we get into Richie's news round, the last time we spoke, Kevin Kilban, things happen in football. A week is a long time. Arsene Wenger was the Arsenal manager, so yeah, that's finished. I was just watching his full press conference there on YouTube. It's worth a watch if you're interested. Anybody listening, he was very good in a few things. Said it was weird the last few days. It was like watching your own funeral. Everyone saying how great you were. He brought up the fans certainly as one of the reasons for the departure. You can have a listen here. I've put together 2 clips, by the way, because initially you'll hear him say he was really unhappy with the fans, but then at a later point, maybe realising how that sounded, he said, look, I don't want any silly headlines. So just so he doesn't get misrepresented, here's what Wenger was saying about the atmosphere and about the fans.
Oh.
Not playing at the moment.
Technical difficulties is the word he's looking for here, Joe.
Will I shoot on or will I give it another go? Okay, he's saying throw to it again. Here's Arsene Wenger.
I believe that this club is respected all over the world, much more than in England. That our fans did not give the image of unity I want at the club all over the world, and that was hurtful, because I feel the club is respected, and overall the image we gave from our club is not what it is and not what I like. Look, I'm not here, especially, I'm not resentful. I do not want to make stupid headlines. I am not resentful with the fans. I just feel if my personality is in the way of what I think our club is, it is important that for me, that is more important than me. See? That's all I want to say. It's nothing to do with the fans. The fans were not happy. I can understand that, and that's my job, and I have to live with that. Can accept that.
So that's made headlines, Wenger's point on the fans, but certainly you were over in the UK, obviously, across the weekend. The murmurings within the football world, it seems, are that Wenger is absolutely livid with the decision, angry with the decision, did not want to go, has absolutely 100% been pushed here. And when you watch the press conference back with that knowledge, it's very clear, because several times when he's asked that question in one shape or form or another, he says, no, look, I'll talk about it later in my life. It's not appropriate to talk about it now. So, God, I would think they're all sitting around waiting for Arsene Wenger to do his first big sit-down interview in the next few months.
Still, even now, I said it initially as well. Clearly, Arsene Wenger has constantly said, I'll decide when my contract ends. He said it constantly throughout his Arsenal career when his 2 or 3 year contract up. He wanted to see his contract out. That's the way I read it straight away anyway. And even now, he's still protecting the club, isn't he? That's his first instinct, is to protect the club, protect the people, protect what maybe I've built. He doesn't want to say anything negative around the club. So that's why we may have to wait a couple of years before we actually hear what actually happened when he'd spoken to the owners and the people that run the club. Yeah,
because one of the questions in the press conference was, can you remember the exact moment when you realised, as opposed to you decided, you realised that your time was up And he said now's not the time to talk about that. Because quite clearly, he didn't realise it in the car himself, thinking about things. He was told. He was brought in and told.
Yeah, exactly. We're taking the club in a different direction, and you're not going to be part of it. Which, it does seem sad from that sort of side of it, but I think it's something that I think we spoke about even on the show over the last couple of years. It probably did need to happen. I think it needed to happen for Wenger as well. It's not the ideal way. Maybe he should have maybe thought about it over the last couple of years. Maybe one of those cup wins over the last 4 years, 3 and 4 years. He should have maybe decided that during those. But he's had so much success and he's got so much power there at the club that who am I to maybe to tell him that he should be going?
We'll kick off the news round. So we'll have Keith Earls 7:30, Eddie O'Sullivan after 8. Michael Owen will be on the football show, and Ian Rush was in Dublin today as well. So a few of the lads caught up with Ian Rush and chatted to him about Rome and 1984 and all that. We are here with Air, the home of Air Sport. Get amazing live sporting content free with Air Broadband. Richie, you're starting with this Joey Carbery, Ross Byrne situation.
Yeah, and Leinster say that any move from the province involving Carbery or Byrne will be down to the player. It was reported at the weekend that one of the understudies to Jonathan Sexton will be heading for Ulster at the insistence of the IRFU. Leinster scrum coach John Fogarty was asked about this today and says a move could be beneficial to either player.
We're not in the business of keeping or hoarding players here. We look at the overall group, see how we got game time for that player, and see how we can help them develop, and that's kind of it. If he can't, or if we see that we can't, keep a player moving forward, and it happens, we'll then have the discussion with the player or the RFU. That's when that sort of stuff happens. Tyg Byrne is a really good example for us. So last year, we would have sat down as a coaching group and sort of said, Jesus, this is a good player. We haven't got game time for him. We haven't got enough game time for him. But he's a quality player, and that's when the decisions are made. Certainly in here, where we'll look at that situation and say, right, well, it's time for Ty to go, and that's what he did, and he's done an amazing job, and he's moved on and he's had a great time. But we don't want to be holding players for the sake of holding players. We're here to develop the players.
You had Brian O'Driscoll this morning as well.
Yeah, he was on OTB AM, was Brian this morning, joining Ger, and he had his own view on the matter.
So likewise with a Carbery or I think it's more likely to be a Ross Byrne who'll want to go and get more game time. That is, if Carbery is used a little bit more often at 10, Joe Schmidt has to be pulling his hair out that Carbery's only had one outing for Leinster, starting in the number 10 jersey, and he's his backup number 10. That's not ideal. So someone's going to move, and probably quite soon, just to get game time, because you can't have 3 quality operators at 10.
I would say no if I was the 2 lads. No, not going.
Yeah, but it's a tough one, It is, because I would too, because there's a good chance you're going to be winning medals, or you're going to be in the hunt for winning medals. At the moment, the Ulster are a while away from that.
Isn't the coaching better? Like, I have a coaching ticket here, which has...
That's the other thing. So a young player...
How am I actually going to get better?
Yeah, so they don't know, not knowing what's going to happen up in Ulster, who's going to come in, am I going to improve as a player? Whatever about playing more often, what skills, what am I being taught on a week-to-week basis? So, I wouldn't be in a rush at the moment. Certainly, that wouldn't be my first port of call.
This all blew up yesterday. Peter O'Reilly in the Sunday Times had the scoop. It was on the front page of the Sunday Times. So, some of the quotes from that. Joe Schmidt and the IRFU Performance Director David Nucifora visited Leinster's training centre last Sunday morning to inform head coach Leo Cullen that he needed to make a choice between the 2 youngsters. So it was Cullen's choice, effectively, who was staying, who was leaving. And moreover, he needed to make the choice promptly. And O'Reilly wrote that Leinster were understood to be furious that Cullen should be pressurised like that in the week of a Champions Cup semi-final. And then it seems the decision has been deferred for a while. I guess Champions Cup semi-final, part of that reason. And I know it was interesting, O'Driscoll's feeling there was that it might be Ross Byrne who goes up north. Peter Riley got the feeling from whoever his source was, presumably in Leinster, that if Cullen and Stuart Lancaster are forced into making a call, the chances are they would choose to keep Byrne, seeing as Carbery is likely to be unavailable along with Sexton for large chunks of the season when they're in Ireland camp. So you need someone when both Carbery and Sexton are away. And obviously Byrne hasn't been called up to the Irish camp yet.
You're just saying that Ger maybe made a couple of points there that was right. And it's stuff that I was immediately thinking as well. Look, of course, I wouldn't go. You've got a chance of winning more trophies. You've got a chance of being part of a more successful side. The other thing, the coaching, the development side of it as well. If those 2 lads either or, whichever the decision will be made. What if they don't want to go? Is that basically their Irish career finished then?
Well, let's presume for a second.
Is that what actually would be said to them in no uncertain terms?
I wouldn't think it's been said in no uncertain terms, but I would think if Joe Schmidt or David Nucifort sits down with you, say it's Carberry, say Leo Cullen looks at this and it's like Sophie's choice for Leo Cullen. He doesn't want to let anyone go. I mean, talk about being de-incentivised to bring through your own players and build squad depth. Say he says, well, look, when Sexton's away on international duty, Carberry will be away too, so I'm going to keep Byrne. So Joey Carberry, as talented and brilliant as you are, you have to go. Carberry says, well, I don't really want to go. So if Nucifort or Schmidt sit down with him and say, look, you need mileage at number 10, you're not playing any number 10 at Leinster. I want you to be able to step in after Sexton retires and be the Irish number 10 for a decade. I think this would be really beneficial. I think this is really in your interest. I think it's very important you do this and you'll be given a central contract. So what do you say?
Yeah.
What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
I know, totally. But again, the point there about his development itself, the day-to-day better players, perhaps potentially better coaching. And again, I don't know the setup there at Ulster.
Well, no one does at the moment.
Well, exactly. Well, there you go then. I mean, it's got to be playing in the mind, hasn't it?
I'd say neither of them want to go anywhere away from Leinster.
Yeah.
Why would you? They're the best team in Europe.
That offer of a central contract is going to be huge, though, because presuming that will be on the table for either Byrne or Carberry if they're going to move.
Certainly Carberry, yeah. So, I don't look. According to the piece yesterday, it seems that Leo Cullen has been asked to pick between the two, and then presumably whoever is picked to stay and whoever's picked to go.
It's harsh, isn't it? It's a harsh one, isn't it?
It's brutal. It's terrible.
It's harsh.
But they're paying the price, Leinster, for this. I know you can't necessarily feel bad for a team that are achieving on the pitch and also producing players to beat the band, but they're seeing Jordy Murphy head off. They had to wave goodbye to Ty Byrne, and now they're going to see Ross Byrne or Joey Carberry go as well, all because they just happen to be producing them. It's a strange one.
We'll talk about it with Eddie on the rugby after 8 o'clock. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if he had been involved that directly in moving players around the country to different provinces, so we'll chat to him after 8 o'clock. Where are you going next?
Confirmed today that Sean O'Brien's season is over. The flanker will miss next month's Champions Cup final with Racing after he underwent shoulder surgery on Friday. He's actually just posted on Instagram in the past few moments to say, I've had a tough year fighting with my body both mentally and physically, but in a way I'm glad I've had the chance to now get it right and be ready for next season. I'll be a new man and can look forward to so much, and he thanks everybody for the support, of course. Fergus McFadden is out of this Saturday's Pro 14 trip to Connacht. That's after sustaining a hamstring injury while scoring a try in that win over the Scarlets this past weekend. Donnacha Ryan says he's loving every aspect of life in France. The former Munster lock helped deny his former teammates a return to the Champions Cup final for the first time in a decade yesterday. Racing ran out 27-22 winners in Bordeaux in a game that was far more one-sided than the scoreline suggested. Ryan told our Dave afterwards that he had ultimate sympathy for his former teammates.
I really know how hard it is and put so much work and stress into it. And because it means everything really, because you want to be playing at the top. But I think one thing I've done since I come to France is to really enjoy outside of it. It's definitely when you're in playing and in training and stuff, it's great. But making sure to switch off afterwards and enjoy afterwards is important as well, because sometimes rugby can become a bit all-consuming, and that's great in one part, but at the same time, it's at the end of the day, it's sport,
Sam Allardyce looking to quell the local disquiet at his tenure as Everton manager this evening. They play host to the side directly beneath them in the Premier League table. That's Newcastle. For Everton, Jordan Pickford starts in goal. They've got a back four of Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane, Phil Jagielka and Leighton Baines. Idrissa Gueye, Morgan Schneiderlin and Wayne Rooney are in midfield, with Theo Walcott and Yannick Bolasie flanking Cenk Tosun. For Newcastle, Martin Dubravka starts in goal. A back four for them of DeAndre Yedlin, Jamal Lascelles, Florian Lejeune and Paul Dummett. Matt Ritchie, John Joe Shelby, Mo Diame and Kennedy are across their midfield, with Ayoze Perez in support of Islam Samani. Kick-off at Goodison is at 8 o'clock.
And then the GAA have come out?
Yeah, the GAA has reaffirmed it will not be taking a position or commenting on the upcoming referendum on the 8th Amendment. It's believed they've written to each county secretary to remind them of the association's impartial stance on such matters. A group calling themselves GAA Athletes for a No Vote, which includes Tyrone manager Mickey Hart, held an event at Ballyfermot De La Salle GAA club on Saturday. The club have since distanced themselves from the event itself.
Yeah, quite right too, because I don't think the values of the GAA or the loyalty people have to the GAA should be leveraged the way it was in that video, regardless of whether you're calling for a yes or no vote. It needs to be very clear it's not an official stance, and I don't think that was necessarily clear. So I'm delighted to see them come out and make that point. Will Meryl Streep play the part of Leo Cullen in the inevitable TV dramatisation Leo's Choice on HBO or Showtime?
Good Lord, what an image.
There is a question.
What an image.
I'm really tired of the myth that Wenger inherited a great defence. Arsenal finished 10th in 93, 12th in 95. The defence was a shambles for a few years before Wenger from Garrett. I don't know if that's quite fair. Although on the not building a defence thing, whatever about the famous back five, Wenger did manage to throw together the likes of Lauren, Cola Torre, Sol Campbell and brought through Ashley Cole, and they did just fine.
Yeah.
There's a mystery about what happened to Wenger. Somewhere along the line, there is a great documentary on how he lost his way so badly.
There's a great documentary, I think, tonight on Channel 5, actually. You can't get Channel 5 here, can we? You can't get it.
It's in other channels on Sky.
Yeah, Channel 5 tonight. It's Wenger v Fergie. It's called The Feud. I think it's on at 10 o'clock tonight. And
they should actually make a big effort to replicate the Vieira Keane documentary with Wenger and Fergie. Get them on board.
I think the problem with Wenger is probably when he became more intrinsically linked with the running of the club rather than the running of the team.
Maybe, yeah. Didn't spend the money. Overly loyal to trying to bring young players through. But he seemed to look at Vieira and Petit and Adams and Cola Torre and all these players with power and pace. You've talked a million times about being in the tunnel next to them.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line said, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, I know. It supposedly when they were beaten by Barcelona in, was it 04, would that be right? No,
06.
06 was it?
The final.
Supposedly it changed around that game. He wanted players that could play like Barcelona. He wanted to try to create this side similar sort of fashion to Barcelona.
Well, who'd scare you of the Man City squad if you were standing next to them in the tunnel?
Well, no, I know that, but it's different. Well, you would, Vincent Kompany. I think you would. There'd be one or two that would be, and the stronger. So I think it's just a style of play. It's the way that they play, I think, as well.
We'll come back to it, no doubt. Before we take a short break and get into Keith Earls, Carling, the official beer of the Premier League, is bringing you closer to Premier League action. And thanks to Carling, you could win tickets to a Premier League game of your choice next season. That's of your choice next season for you and a friend, with return flights, accommodation and €250 spending money all included. So a brilliant prize. For your chance to win, simply identify your mystery voice who thinks Off the Ball's Director of Operations, Adrian Barry, needs to work on his managerial style.
Angry managers actually aren't good managers, are they? They're angry all the time.
He's angry all the time.
Oh, he is. He is, yeah.
Very.
Very.
Angry managers actually aren't good managers, are they? They're angry all the time.
Text your number and answer 53106 for 30 cents. We'll announce the first of this week's finalists for that prize at the end of the show. Terms and conditions apply. And always remember to drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.ie for more info. So the plan for this evening again, Michael Owen will be on the football show. We've a 35 minute studio interview with him. We'll have Eddie O'Sullivan after 8 o'clock. We'll also have Ian Rush. And up next, after disappointment in Bordeaux, we'll have Keith Earls.
Off the Ball on News Talk in association with Air.
Don't miss live and exclusive Premier League action this month on the Air Sport Pack.
Moncrief.
Those poor Apollo-era astronauts basically had to poop into a bag.
It was pretty nasty back then. It kind of got taped to your rear end, and then once you pooped in it, you had to remove it, and you had to seal the bag and then massage the contents inside the bag to make the disinfectant and all the things that took the smell and the problems away.